I started this campaign saying we're in the battle for the soul of the nation. I believe that even more deeply today. Who we are, what we stand for, and maybe most importantly, who we are going to be. It's all at stake. Characters on the ballot, the character of the country. And this is our opportunity to leave the dark, angry politics of the past 4 years behind us, to choose hope over fear, unity over division, science over fiction. I believe it's time to unite the country, to come together as a nation. But I can't do it without you. So I'm asking for your vote. We need to remember, this is the United States of America. And there's never been anything we've been unable to do when we've done it together. I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Welcome to the Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore. It is Saturday, October the 31st, 2020. On this edition of the Politicrat, a heart-to-heart about where we are and where we must go. That coming up next. Now I want to play you this bit from CNN yesterday from their reporter Amara Walker, A-M-A-R-A, first name, last name Walker. I believe you pronounce her name Amara. I don't think it's Amara, I think it's Amara. And it speaks for itself. Listen to what Amara Walker has to say about an experience she had this week. I want you to listen to this carefully. And I want you to ask yourself whether that is the country you want to continue living in. Because this has been going on for so many hundreds of years, and I guess the answer to the question is already yes. And it continues to accelerate now. But I want you to listen to this. It's maybe 2 or 3 minutes long. I don't remember how long it is, maybe even longer than that. But I want you to listen to this. This took place on Friday, October 30th, this conversation on CNN. Breonna Keeler and CNN reporter Amara Walker. So there you have it. I am not going to add anything to what Amara Walker had to say there, because I think that is pretty darn clear. It's clear that this is where the country is. It's been here for a long time. We now have someone in the White House who openly promotes this hatred, this racism, this misogyny. Openly promotes hatred, this racism. Openly tells the Proud Boys what he tells them on a debate stage. Just like how on the world stage he threw the country you live in here in the United States, threw it under the bus for Vladimir Putin and threw intelligence agencies under the bus. He threw, or I should say elevated, racists, white racists. He elevated them on the domestic stage at a debate. And then people wonder, why is there all this hatred? Why is there all this racism? It's been around way before Donald Trump, by the way. It's been around for hundreds of years. It's interesting that it took George Floyd to wake up a contingent of white people in this country. I don't know whether to cringe at that news or be happy about that news that white people, or at least some white people, woke up. That it took such a brutal, violent thing, when brutal, violent things have been going on. Attacking, violent things have happened to black people forever in this country. And on tape as well. Why was it this particular one? Listen to me. This particular one, right? Of the millions of them that there've been. Oh, but this one was so long. It's like, it's so weird the way we even blooming well talk about this. I mean, why didn't people react to Moore's Ford's Bridge? Go look up Moore's Ford Bridge or Moore's Ford Bridge in Georgia. Go look that up. Type that into your search engine and read that. Make sure you haven't eaten anything in the hour before you read it. But maybe you might want to have some scotch handy when you do read that. I mean, didn't people think that was something to react to and be up in arms about and try to end? And that happened in the 40s, I think, or the 30s. I think it was 1940s or 50s that happened. Moore's Ford Bridge. Go look that up. And then read. Read that. Read the accounts. And it's taken, well, anyway. Amara Walker speaks volumes. What happened to her this week? And she's a CNN reporter. This happens to Asians everywhere. This happens to black folk everywhere. Latinx get this. This is what white people are doing. And sometimes it's not white people, but most of the time it is. The question is, what will white people do at the ballot box? That's the question. Instead of these questions that people ask about black voters. Oh, will black voters turn out? Come on. Black voters always turn out. Now, did some stay at home? Yeah. But there was still a heck of a lot of black folk who voted last time. Don't even go there. You're targeting 13% of the population when you've got 70 or 68% of the population, white people, who are splitting their bloomin' vote between these two guys? Give me a friggin' break. Who haven't voted in the majority for a Democratic presidential candidate since 1996 or 1992? Give me a break. I think the inquiry, Sky News, since you're the ones that tweeted this today, should be about what will white voters do. They make up 68 to 70% of the population of the country. They make up around, whatever it is, in the 60s or they make up that percentage of the population. That's most of the friggin' population, last time I checked. And I wasn't a math major. But that I know, that much I know. 68% is more than 50%. Yeah, but we're going to focus on, Sky News is going to focus on the 12% of the population. Yeah. Oh, yeah, okay. And 98% of the black women in that population vote for the Democrat all the time. 99% of them. Shut up. Give me a break. Don't even go there. You got these newspapers and online magazines and online, the black vote, there isn't black turnout, we're worried. No, bull crap, there's black turnout. It's black turnout all over the place. Go turn on your TV. Who's standing in those friggin' long lines? And who's being suppressed from voting? Shut up. Yeah, come on now. God, people. You're going to fall for that nonsense. You're going to fall for that. Oh, but maybe it was those black and those youth. Maybe they didn't. It's everything. You're looking at everything except the thing you should be looking at. White voters almost always split between the two major party candidates for president. And more of them vote for the Republican. They did for George W. Bush. They did for, come on. They did for Mitt Romney, John McCain. A majority of white people have not voted for a Democratic candidate since I guess it's 1996. It would have been Bill Clinton, the last one. 30 odd years ago, almost. Whatever. Yeah, 30 years ago, almost. 20 something years ago. It's either 1992 or 96. So there's that. I think your level of inquiry should be white voters. And they always break it down, college degrees and non-college degrees. But, they don't do that with black voters, right? They don't do that with Latinx voters. They don't go, well, Latinx voters with college degrees or not, black voters with college degrees or not. Come on. But with white voters, it's the white voters with college degrees, ones without. Yeah, come on. You know what's going on there. Come on. But you don't just say white voters, though. Yeah, I know what game you're playing there. Come on. You don't say black voters with college degrees, you don't, wait, so the pollsters and these people, they don't ask black people whether they're college educated or not? They only ask the white? They only ask the white participants that? See, this is why I tell you, stop looking at these polls. Come on, folks. Stop looking at these polls. Ignore them. The only poll that counts is the one on election night, or the night after that, or the night after that. But if we vote in droves, we won't have to worry about nights after that or that or that in terms of the election. We'll have to look at, of course, what the reaction is going to be and deal with that. And I talked about that. I'm talking about it again. But come on, go out there and vote. Welcome back. So, look, we've had this long march. Donald Trump did not happen overnight. And I remember in the conversation I had with Errol Morris, the documentary filmmaker, on this podcast earlier this week, he expressed a lot of dismay and bewilderment, quite frankly, about how this has happened. How did this country get to where it was? And I pointed out to him, I said, look, in my opinion, my humble opinion is, look, this has been a 50-year march. And he said he didn't disagree with me. And I think that's the truth of this. This did not just begin a few minutes ago with Donald Trump. This has been a corporate march. This has been the centering of corporate entity and power, which is what Lewis Powell and the Powell Memo did in 1971 or 72, which was about restoring the corporate entity to the center and seat of government in the United States. And this was about a response to the growing middle class in the 1950s and into the 60s. Kennedy and the tax rates for billionaires were pretty damn high. It was in the 90% range with Eisenhower in the 50s and 60s. Then you got to JFK. It was still pretty damn high, around 77% or so. And then it started to go down under Reagan. And Lewis Powell's Powell Memo about corporates being the center of business and the establishment of government and in the heart of that, got Lewis Powell onto the Supreme Court under Nixon. We see what happened there, and then we see the Supreme Court decisions that favored corporations and money. And Buckley versus Vallejo was one of those decisions. First National Bank of Boston versus Bellotti was another of them. And there's a third one, which now I'm just blanking on. I don't know why, because I'm normally good at reciting these pretty well. There's a great book by Tom Hartman called The Hidden History of the Supreme Court and the Betrayal of America that I think you should read. But I just think that, look, this is what's happened, and money and influence has become much more of the thing. And we see how this has happened under Nixon. Then we got to Carter. Then we got to Reagan in particular, who really set this off with the destruction of the infrastructure of this country. And the whole 1980s era as the me decade, right? That's what it was called. The 1980s was called the me decade. You know, that's what it was called. And the hallmark of that era was a distinct phrase that came from a 1987 movie by Oliver Stone. That movie was Wall Street. The actor was Michael Douglas, and he said, greed, for a lack of a better word, is good. Now, I can't do Michael Douglas's accent. The Gordon Gekko accent. I can't do it. I know that Michael Douglas won an Oscar for that performance. But there was something more. It was a cultural thing, right? I mean, I know that sounds really pretentious sounding, perhaps, but it was a touchstone in this country. That was something that was identified and adopted as a hallmark, one of the hallmarks of that decade. The I get mine, you get yours culture. The pull yourself up by the bootstraps, conservative nonsense that has been floated for decades before, but it was a real mantra back then, you know, and it still is in some conservative circles, Republican circles. You know, these are the things, right? These are the things. And, you know, I just think that this kind of stuff has really taken hold, and it's taken hold for many a year now. It's filtered into Donald Trump as well. He's the one that promoted this in the same decade. Lifestyles and the rich and famous. Robin Leach. All that stuff in the 1980s was all about me, 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 and wealth, wealth, wealth. And that's no accident, folks. It started with this Pal Memo stuff. Remember on TV in the 1970s and even before that, you would find these more quote-unquote down-to-earth families being portrayed on TV. And then as the 1980s started, it became all these richer families or upper-middle-class families. I remember when it used to be, I guess, Claudine, or whatever her name was. Diane Carroll would play her on TV in the movies or whatever. And, you know, you'd have the Jeffersons and moving on up, you know, I want to get my piece of the pie. That was even before the 80s, so it really began before that. So you had this black family, and, you know, they want to move on up, and I think one of the Jeffersons was the conservative guy, and then they had family ties in the 80s, Michael J. Fox, and, you know, he's the Alex Keaton guy. Alex Keaton, I'm the Republican, and we should have the tax cut. I mean, this stuff was all floated through, and this is done on Hollywood lots and elsewhere. And so this all floated into the culture. You had greed is good, you know. It's not. Greed is destructive. The love of money is the root of all evil. And you saw all this, right? And that was in Reagan land, right? That was all Reaganism and Reaganomics, which killed this country and still is killing it. That's what's really choking this country right now. Trump's the quote-unquote logical conclusion of it, or the logical whatever of it. He's the byproduct of it. He's not the only thing. And then you had Clinton and the deregulation. You know, before that it was Reagan in 87 getting rid of the fairness doctrine through the FCC, which diluted the media, which meant that the media, you know, didn't have to give an hour of broadcasting to these viewpoints. It didn't have to give two viewpoints fair time on TV. It didn't have to. And then that's where you got a Fox News, where it just slanted one way all the way through, and it was complete lies. And then you have MSNBC, which, is not Fox, but certainly is a network that, has a point of view on things. But again, even that's not really true anymore, because they've become more conservative. They've got all these right-leaning hosts on there, or people who were formerly Republicans, if they're not Republicans still. Nicole Wallace and they once had Hugh Hewitt doing a show on there, for God's sake. They got rid of Phil Donahue in the early 2000s. We had all of this stuff go on. It's just, ugh. The trial of the Senate, all of this stuff has changed. And we talk about this a bit more. But, wow, this country has really changed over 50 years. It really has. Voting rights and all this other stuff has all been it's just evaporated. I tried to say evaporated and eviscerated at the same time, and I said evass. It has evaporated, and we have to now put the brakes on this madness.
The coronavirus.
This is their new hoax.
We have it totally under control. It's one person coming in from China.
One day it's like a miracle. It will disappear.
When you have 15 people, and within a couple of days it's going to be down to close to zero, we really think we've done a great job in keeping it down to a minimum.
I like this stuff. I really get it. People are surprised that I understand it.
No, I don't take responsibility at all.
Priorities USA Action is responsible for the content of this ad.
Hi, I'm Connie Chung. I had a 35-year career in television news thanks to the women's movement and the minority movement in the 60s and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I searched for the facts and I told you the truth. I covered a lot of men who ran for president and the men who made it to the White House. I saw their pimples and their blemishes and their foibles up close. I never really told you what I thought of them, but this year, I can't sit on the sidelines. This year is too important. So it's really hard for me to say this, but our president lies about every issue that's important to us, to women. He lies about coronavirus, he lies about climate change, and most importantly, he lies about what he's going to do about our health insurance, our health care. President Trump can succeed in killing the Affordable Care Act. It comes before the Supreme Court this November. Now that means that if your child has asthma, no insurance. If you have breast cancer, no coverage. If you have coronavirus, can you imagine this? You may not get coverage. He says he'll preserve all of those pre-existing conditions, but that's not true. He won't. And our right to choose Roe versus Wade is in dire jeopardy. Our future, the future of women, is at stake. Do you know that Asians are the least likely to vote? True. I was so surprised. And yet our population in the U.S., listen to this, can make the difference in who wins. Yes, our vote can make the difference. The Asian vote. People think we should know our place, right? Well, I'll tell you where our place is. It's in the voting booth. If you're not registered, you must. I needed help to get my mail-in ballot, so I asked for help. Please ask for help if you need help. If you trusted me before, believe me now. Vote for Biden and Harris. They care about us and our families. They care about racism. They care about sexism, hate, violence, our jobs, the killing of unarmed blacks, our equality, and specifically discrimination against women. I want our peaceful country back again, don't you? I urge you to vote for Biden and Harris and the Democratic ticket all the way down the line. I'm Connie Chung. Thank you.
This is about views, policies, And the way that we have gone from these places 50 years ago where it was Nixon and it was Reagan. Then we got to Bush Sr., then we got to Clinton. And this deregulation. I mean, that's what set all this stuff in motion from Nixon onwards. That was responsible for Donald Trump. Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan were the architects for Donald Trump and neoliberal policies from Democrats, from the corporate Democrats. That's where we are. I mean, this was not this thing about, well, Obama's the one that, like it was Obama's fault for he's responsible for Donald Trump. He didn't bring about Donald Trump. Racists were the ones that voted Donald Trump in, and Republicans who suppressed the vote. And the Russians did all the propagandistic stuff online, along with Cambridge Analytica and Facebook. And that's what's been going on. But that did not happen in a vacuum. You have these policies of deregulation by Clinton that were responsible for this. Al Gore was said to have invented the internet, and then you've got the internet becoming what it is. I'm not saying that's Al Gore's fault, but I'm simply saying that there's context to all of this. And it's these corporate entities, the stuff that Lewis B. Powell talked about in the Powell memo. Lewis Powell, rather. I don't know if his middle initial was B or not or whatever. But the point is that this is what has happened. Corporations being the center of U.S. government, being the center of the country. Look at what's going on. You've got Facebook basically dictating political content. Facebook being at the heart of things on social media. They're not allowing Joe Biden's ads. The ads that tell you that Joe Biden will cut your taxes and you will not. These ads are so important on a platform that's seen by more people than any other on social media. And the ad was, if you're making less than $400,000 a year, you will not have any tax increase. It's Joe Biden's policy. And that ad has been banned off of Facebook. That ad got caught up in this sweep. Oh, we're not having false political advertising. So they got rid of an ad that actually was telling the truth and is telling the truth, because that is his policy. It's just a shambles. And that, I tell you, the reason why we even have social media, quite frankly, is because of this deregulation from Bill Clinton in 1996 with that Telecommunications Act. I mean, it's a nightmare. Oh, I may have deregulated too much. You think? Now only 5 corporate news media, now there's only 5 corporations owning 98% of what you see and read and hear. That's really invasive when you think about it. That's disturbing. All this stuff has happened. There used to be over 350 companies owning the media in the United States. 350 own different TV stations, radio stations. 350. Which meant that there was a more competitive marketplace for ideas to be heard and marketed, quite frankly. And now there's only 5. 5. And many of those 5 are conservative. You can't go anywhere on the internet now without seeing some kind of conservative ad. Especially now. You go on Google, you go on any of these search engines, most of them. You go on YouTube, and I guarantee you will see a Donald Trump ad. Even if you've never been on his website, you will see an ad with Donald Trump's name or face on it. I guarantee you, you tell me if I'm wrong. You will go to Google search engine and you type in a story about Donald Trump or Joe Biden. And I guarantee you the first 5 or 6 stories will be from right-wing media. I guarantee you. Or at least 3 of those first 5 will be, 4 of those first 5 will be from corporate news media. Excuse me, from right-wing corporate news media. Or right-wing media sources that are full of lies and garbage. I'm telling you, go do it now while you're listening to this. Do a search. Trump and the economy, Trump and taxes, Joe Biden, whatever that search is, I guarantee you will come up with at least the first 4 of those right-wing newspapers, right-wing blogs. They pay money and they get all this dark money and all this other money, whatever, to do this. Get themselves on the search engine at number 1. Doesn't mean that what they're saying is true, because it's usually it's all out and out lies, right? But we're first with the lie. And so people gravitate to, that's the thing on top, because when you search a search engine, you search, generally speaking, unless you're doing some extensive research for a book project or from some scientific or whatever it is you're doing, film research or what, you are not looking beyond the first 5 or 6 choices. Unless you are searching for more, balanced or liberal or progressive voices, and then you have to dig and search for pages till you get to them. That's how it works. And this is all from this deregulation of Clinton, the 1987 Fairness Doctrine. The Fairness Doctrine was scrapped in 87 under Reagan. And now we get to this point of reality TV and how that's destroyed things. Reality TV has taken over the news. It has eclipsed the news. It started in the late 1980s with The Real World, or in the early 1990s with The Real World, MTV. Remember, MTV used to play nothing but music videos? It wouldn't even play black artists, by the way, first of all, in the 1980s. David Bowie had to actually shame them. And there were lots of black people, including Jesse Jackson, who had a campaign against MTV for this. And it took a white artist, right? Someone who's well-known and world-known, like David Bowie, to confront MTV on their own air and ask their white VJ, Mark Friedman, or whatever his name was, why don't you put black... Yeah, you go look that up on YouTube. You might see a Donald Trump ad while you're looking it up. Go look that up and look at the interview, and David Bowie asks him, why doesn't MTV play any black artists? You gotta listen to the answer that Mark Freeman, or whatever his name is. Listen to what the MTV VJ says. That will, you have to just watch it. That'll raise your eyebrow or make you shake your head. I mean, look, this is what's happened. There's this march for this reality TV, this eclipsing of what reality is. Reality TV is completely orchestrated, right? It is false. It is lies. It is pantomime. And now it has replaced actual news. So then you go on, and then there's an attack on what the truth is. So you've got these 2 attacks. One is an attack that's more discreet, but equally as toxic, which is the reality TV show and The Apprentice that many of you listening have watched, I guarantee. At least some of you have. I have never watched that show, and I'm proud of it. But I am telling you right now that this is exactly what this is now. These things all connect. This ain't anything wild to say, but they do. People don't look at context. At least some people don't. I think a lot of people do. I'm never going to say that a lot of people don't. But, I mean, I'll never say that nobody does, because people do look at context. But a lot of people do not look at context, because the news media they watch focuses only on the very shiny object right before their very eyeball, but doesn't zoom out. The camera does not, and the perspective does not zoom out so that we see the whole picture around it. You can't see the forest for the trees. That's the way that the corporate news media is. Cable news media is. There are some good investigative reports occasionally, and I can think of a couple of people, I'm not going to name them, on certain networks who do that very well. But the reality is that over these last 50 years, we've seen how news has shifted. We've seen how corporations have shaped the news into an entertainment vehicle that they attempt to make some semblance of profit off of. Because news was never a real profiteering business. It was a money loser. And in some ways it still is. But, you've got these billion-dollar pharmaceutical companies and all these companies that don't have your interest at heart advertising on these networks. So that when there was an antitrust action a week or two ago against Google, you never heard jack crap about it on these big shows on MSNBC. The shows that you like. You know, these cult of personalities like Living Color spoke about in that song they did in the 1980s, Vernon Reid and those guys. Oh, I like this anchor. I like that anchor. Oh, they're really good. And not about the news anymore. Now we're talking about what they said or didn't say. I've done it. You've done it. We all reacted to this stuff. And, you know, that's the thing, right? And the news has changed, right? The news has changed. And so Google, the antitrust action that Google has is not going to be on MSNBC. Why? Because Comcast owns MSNBC. And Comcast, quite frankly, is engaging in antitrust activity. I believe that they could well be, if they haven't already been, included in a suit on this kind of thing. And it does implicate them, which is why they're not going to talk about it, which is the sad and bad thing, because we should know about this stuff. Just like when you talk about the environment on Comcast or any of these networks. Well, not all of them, but many of them. They we can't talk about that here. We don't want to get the shareholders and the bosses upset. We don't want to drive down the price of our stock. I mean, this is what happens. This is what happened to CBS News. Remember the insider, I've talked about this before, Jeffrey Wigand, the executive at Brown & Williamson, who was a whistleblower, who stood up and gave his, basically, violated his confidentiality agreement or something like that to talk to CBS to do the public a service. And then CBS News had to shelve the story because CBS Corporate was working on a merger with Westinghouse. And God forbid, this story would really hurt the merger. It will hurt our chances to make money. So we've got to scrap this great important story about tobacco and its addictiveness and all the things that Brown & Williamson was doing to deceive millions of people. People dying from, tobacco. I mean, come on, this is just ridiculous. That's where the media has gone to. Then you have to watch the movie The Insider. Al Pacino and Russell Crowe. Go watch that movie. Deals with this whole thing about the media, CBS News, and CBS Corporate, and what the corporate entity has done. Again, we are living in an age, we have been for a long while now, where after the fairness doctrine was scrapped, after that was scrapped by Reagan in 87 through the FCC, after the Telecommunications Act of 1996 deregulated the media, so that now you have only 5 owners of 98% of what you see and hear and read. Oh God, that's so draconian. I don't even don't know where to begin with that. It's frightening. And not because I'm frightening you, but because of what the facts are. It's what really happened. Right? This is why we have Donald Trump. It ain't, Obama's the reason why Trump exists. No. Now, there are policies of Obama's that were really harmful. You know, I've got criticisms of Obama all day long. He's still a damn sight better president than this piece of crap is, this orange dung that you've got now. I mean, come on. And, you know, Obama was obstructed for 8 years as well. You know, I don't like that Obama clamped down on whistleblowers. I just spoke to you about Jeffrey Wigand. I don't like the fact that Chelsea Clinton, yeah. I don't like the fact that Chelsea Manning is still behind bars. I don't like the fact that Edward Snowden has to hide out someplace in Russia. I'm not, listen, and I don't necessarily agree with everything Snowden says. I mean, I think he's a really important voice. I don't think he's a traitor. I know some people do. Oh, he's a traitor. And give me a break. He's not a traitor. He did something that was important in the time he did it in. Give me a break. And these people who go, oh, Chelsea Manning, well, she violated secrets of the, and you've got, and then these MFers are supporting a guy who has bankrupted this country, who has turned it over to Putin. Give me a break. See how that works? These guys, these people who are screaming about Chelsea Manning and oh my God, and oh goodness, oh my goodness me. And Snowden's a traitor. Edward Snowden's and then you got a traitor in the White House who does nothing as Putin puts bounties on the heads of American military personnel, and they get murdered. And Afghan rebels and Taliban people take the money. And Donald Trump never says anything to Putin about it. Never warns him, never sanctions him, nothing. And you are okay with that, some of you. Not you listening, but you in general. These same people who scream and shout about Chelsea Manning being bad and oh my gosh, oh my goodness me, put her in jail for the rest of her life. And Snowden, oh my gosh. Give me a friggin' break. They did a public service. They're exposing things that we need to know, like Errol Morris exposes things you need to know. Oh, let's censor Errol Morris with American Dharma because Steve Bannon's an odious figure. Yeah, he's odious. But just because, again, I said this before, because Errol Morris puts him on screen, that doesn't mean he approves of him. We need to know about people like this. We need to have them examined. Because I don't think Steve Bannon has really been credibly examined, except in some passing news story. But some of the people out here screaming about Chelsea Manning, people have even forgotten about Chelsea Manning. Come on. Give me a break. And Edward Snowden. Come on. Not everybody, but come on. The vast majority of people in America, they don't even remember Chelsea Manning. And that's sad. We don't even remember the folks who do these things, right? They don't remember who Jeffrey Wigand is. They don't remember that unless they've watched The Insider. How many people remember Jeffrey Wigand? I mean, do you remember him? It's like these people did things that were important. Do you remember Marie Yovanovitch? Do you remember who that is? Do you remember who Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman is? I know some of you, the people who listen to this podcast, Most of you know who those people are, right? Do you know who Fiona Hill is? Do you know who Olivia Troy is? Yeah, come on. You get the idea, right? But there are a lot of people who don't know who those individuals are. Do you know who, I can go down the list, and I forget her last name. Now, Dawn, the black woman, and I'll tell you who she is. I don't remember her last name, but just a month or so ago, she came out. She's a nurse practitioner, I believe, or a doctor. She came out. Dawn Wooten is her name. Do you know who she is? She's the person who came out and said that they're doing all these forced sterilizations of black and brown women. The Border Patrol was doing it or something, and these doctors would coordinate. Come on, folks. Come on now. This all is happening in front of us, behind us, around us. This country the language of this country has changed over the last 50 years. It's become somewhat subtle, but it's also pronounced. You've got reality TV eclipsing hard news, real news, and any news at all is driven by one issue news episodes. It's more performance than it is news. Some of it is important. The content is important. I think that Rachel Maddow, I think to a great degree, has done some very good work. But there is performance there too. There is an aspect of performance to a lot of this now. And it's not just Rachel, it's everybody. You know? It's Chris Cuomo using the word fuck or bullshit on the air. Oh, God, I just used it too. Am I performing? I mean, to a certain degree, you'd say that I am. But this is what news has become now. Dan Rather never did that kind of thing, even when he walked out during the US Open. Remember that from 30 odd years ago? He never performed. Walter Cronkite didn't perform. They read the blooming news. I mean, Edward Murrow read the news. You know, Walter Cronkite was called the most trusted man in America. Who would the most trusted man in America be right now? It certainly wouldn't be Donald Trump. Some people would say it wouldn't be Joe Biden either. But Joe Biden is not president of this country. At least not yet. It's up to you to make that a real thing, right? Because I can sit here and talk about the history of this, the history of that, how reality TV and The Apprentice that you watch, and for those of you people out there who watch that crap, you're fired. And Donald Trump was there for 10, 15 years saying all that to people, humiliating people. Oh, we have to compete against each other. And now he's got states bidding against each other. You see how that works? You see how reality TV becomes dangerous? And then it's mirrored by actuality, where you've got a guy in the White House who's got states bidding against each other during a blooming pandemic where hundreds of thousands of people are dying. And in his Apprentice, in the clips I've seen that have been shown on TV, because I've never sit down and watched that crap. He's got people competing against each other, right? It's all a business transaction for him and a business model of destruction because, hey, he's bankrupt. How do you put this guy on for 10, 15 years, NBC? And this guy has bankrupted 6 of his own businesses. A model of failure. A model of failure or a model of stable genius. A model of success is, if ever I saw it, a guy who owes $421 million in debt, presumably to Deutsche Bank or the Russians or whomever. And people are okay with that. Some people are. That's the character of the country changing, at least amongst that loud 35 to 40%. That's what the damage is, right? When you scream at Chelsea Manning, and you scream at Ed Snowden, and you scream at Dawn Wooten, but you say nothing at all about Donald Trump and him humiliating the country on the world stage, throwing it under the bus for Vladimir Putin, when Reagan did not do that in 1984 or 85 or 83 or any time during his tenure, when Gorbachev was standing to his left. I mean, this is just ridiculous. You don't blink an eye at the Access Hollywood tape. Why? Why is it that some people didn't blink an eye at that tape? Why do you think that is? Yeah, of course, misogyny plays a large role. In addition to that, is the way that information, the reality TV world, and the social media world have completely dominated the news and dominated your brain. There is no real news. I mean, there is real news, but it's become an entertainment show. It's become tabloid. Walter Cronkite wrote about this before he died, that this was what was going to happen. The news would become tabloid and the tabloid would become news. And that is exactly where we are. That is what has brought about Donald Trump. Not, Obama's response. I've heard people I know say this stuff, and I've had to say no. I profoundly take issue with that. This is about a 50-year march to where we are now. And I don't think that people, if they're really students of history, or even if they're not, people, if they look at this, can honestly deny that. They cannot. You used to have headline news in the 80s and 90s. Headline news. And it used to be hard news. Nothing but headline stories, but a little reporting in each of them. Half an hour of that or 20 minutes of that every single moment of the day and night. It was either every 20 minutes or every half hour. I think it was every half hour. You give us 30 minutes, we'll give you the world. That was the slogan of headline news. And I loved it, man. I used to watch that channel freaking religiously. You know? I mean, look, I had a life. I mean, I'm not saying that I didn't go out and do things. Of course I did. Great times. But come on, folks. I remember that. That was only in the 90s. Some people aren't old enough to remember that. And I remember it way before the 90s when the news was much more serious. There was a laugh here and there. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is news is information and it's very important. And when it's replaced by performance artists, and when it's replaced by reality TV, and when everybody wants to watch the latest edition of The Voice, I know it's entertainment. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be entertained, especially now. But my goodness, that's also part of what we've got to with Facebook. Now you can't see this ad. Joe Biden's ads about taxes can be completely erased. You know, $400,000. If you earn less than that, you won't get taxed. Now, that would have been a good ad to have on Facebook, but that ad on Facebook has now been erased. Why? Why is Facebook doing that? It got caught up in this system that we were doing. Why? Why haven't they put those ads back on? Don't you think that would be helpful? Facebook is a big platform. It's got so many eyeballs, billions of users. It's the most used social media platform on the planet as far as I know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. 4 billion people have Facebook, or 3 billion, or whatever the hell it is. Come on. But even that too, that's a large part of this problem. And you've got corporate control. You've got these 30-something, 40-something white men controlling all this stuff, censoring your tweets, telling you can't complain, telling you that when you're harassed online, we don't find that this breaches the terms of service. And you got women being death threatened every day. You got stuff being sent to them. Oh, but that doesn't fit our terms of harassment policy. Oh, that doesn't, no, we can't suspend them. And then you say something, you say 2 words to a celebrity and they suspend your account. Give me a break. But that's what's happened. It's man-made weather, right? The corporate news media and the social media world, which I've traveled on many a time, as I know that you must too, is man-made weather. Some white man is controlling how you communicate on his forum. Now, I'm saying that you don't want to be using language that is racially, racist or misogynist or anything like that, or anti-Islamic or Islamophobic or anti-Semitic or any of those things. But the social media folks police the wrong damn things. That's my issue. They police the wrong damn things. Like an ad from Joe Biden telling you that if you make less than $400,000 a year, you won't see any increase in your tax. You won't get taxed. You won't get any tax increase. It's only people making above that amount. But that's something that they're censoring on Facebook. And we can't see that ad. It's just crazy. You're policing the wrong things, and that's deliberate. You've got Mark Zuckerberg meeting with Donald Trump several times in the White House. Come on. Donald Trump is a creature of the media. He is created by the media, like a Frankenstein. The media kissed his butt in the 1980s, and they still do. They gave him $5 billion of free airtime. I mean, come on, folks. This is what's happening. This guy was doing this stuff before Obama came along. He was racist before Obama. This isn't about Obama. The guy refused to let black people rent in his properties in the 1970s. And he was sued 2 or 3 times by the feds, and he lost each time. Come on. This is really, again, I tell you, headline news, 1990s and 1980s used to be great. You know what headline news is now? HLN. And you know what HLN is, apart from a couple of little shows they do with the news? Robin Meade and those folks over there. I don't know if Robin Meade is still there. I don't even watch HLN anymore. And they used to have Nancy Grace on there and all that. I don't know if she still does that anymore. But now it's all lurid, tabloidy garbage. It's garbage. It really is garbage. That's what it is now, headline news. It's now called HLN. It's been that for years. And I mean, this is what's happened to the news, right? This is what happens when you have deregulation, Bill Clinton. This is what happens when you have a scrapping of the fairness doctrine, Ronald Reagan. I mean, this is what happens. Phil Donahue, Oprah Winfrey used to have these talk shows about real issues every day. The news, real issues with people involved in the conversation in the audience and guests. Now you have The View, which, while it does deal with some good conversations, does not involve the whole audience giving back and forth. They just sit there and watch 4 people or 5 people get into arguments, get upset, or say things that are really good because they are true, or spar with a guest. It's all entertainment and spectacle now. Come on. You can see this. I'm not the only one that sees this. I'm not professing to be. But this is true. Come on, you can see that. Right? It used to be Oprah in a studio with an audience. They would have opinions. Before that, it was Phil Donahue, named the grandfather of daytime talk. And he would have these guests, and they'd talk about real blooming issues, and they'd have audience interaction. And you learn something about the way people think and express themselves around the issues. You learn about the issue. Now, let's just have a talk around a table, and let's just react to what these pundits are saying, to what these particular people are saying on The View, and what the people are saying on Fox. If you watch Fox, the Five. Oh, the Five. No, I don't watch Fox News. It's hazardous to my health. I see clips of all this stuff because it's on the air or on YouTube. The Five. And they just sit around talking. And that's what the news has been reduced to. It's not even news. And where's the news? You've got to search for it, mate. And you've got to read beyond the headline. And that's what's happened to the blooming news now. It's happened over the last 30, 40 years. And you know, the 30 years at least. And remember, there used to be news all the time. You know why? That's got eclipsed. Because you had things like O.J. Simpson. The trial of the century. And they covered that blooming thing from pillar to post. Before that, it was the confirmation hearing of Clarence Thomas in 1991. And Anita Hill, remember? Pillar to post. Coverage on these networks. C-SPAN definitely had it. Well, C-SPAN, God love them. You know, they all cover anything. They'd cover a blooming Klan rally if you put it on. I'm not kidding you. They cover everything, and you'll have the host, he or she will just sit there. They'll just sit there and go, well, that was the Klan rally from Grand Rapids, Michigan, or, upstate New York. And that rally was brought to you by viewers like you. C-SPAN has been around since 1979. It's a public access network channel. I mean, I'm telling you, they don't editorialize. I mean, they do with the kinds of people they put on there, but they won't comment. You'll have some caller, some wackadoodle call, well, I think Democrats shouldn't exist. I mean, the Democrats, they shouldn't exist at all. They shouldn't exist. And then the host will say, thank you for your opinion. Next caller, please. They don't call it out. They won't even confront that, right? We should do something about it. And then people wonder why you got these violent white men out here. And they listen to this poisonous conservative talk radio, hate radio. That's the other thing that happened as a result of the dissolution of the fairness doctrine and deregulation. You had Sinclair Network and Clear Channel, these conservative groups. And you had Rush Limbaugh. And you had Sean Hannity. And you had Michael Levin and the other Michael. There's Mike Levin or whatever his name is. Mark Levin, excuse me, because I don't want to get his name wrong. And then you've got Michael Savage. You know, even though Savage supposedly is smart, and even Rush Limbaugh has some smarts about him, he is not a dumb person. But that's what makes him dangerous. He talks hate and he talks lies. And that is what Errol Morris was trying to show you about Steve Bannon. But some of the folks in film critic land, oh, he has a bromance with Errol Morris is too chummy with Steve Bannon, the racist. You know? Oh boy. That's the problem with the thinking, right? It gets very shallow and very reactive. So we are very reactionary in our thinking. And that's got nothing to do with left or right in this instance. And I hate this left-right stuff. It's just really annoying. The both sidesism, you know you're fed up of it. You know you're fed up of the whataboutism as well. And the false equivalency. And that's what happens when you have a media eroded like this. When you then have, alternative facts, Kellyanne Conway. And that march to erode truth. And Giuliani, who's unzipping his pants for Borat and his daughter. Go watch Borat, this new one. Oh boy, or maybe not, but if you got time in your hands, in between the phone banking you're gonna do, hopefully, go watch that movie. Whew. Good heavens! I mean, it does expose things. Borat. I mean, Sacha Baron Cohen. That guy's onto something. And I mean, his show earlier this year or last year. Remember that show he did on Showtime? That had these racist white male politicians using the N-word, saying all this stuff. Come on. I think it's called What's Happening in America or What's Up in whatever that show was called that he did. I mean, good grief, man. But again, this is what's happened. The news has disappeared. Giuliani, truth isn't truth. And all this kind of dictatorial stuff. The gaslighting and the propagandistic stuff that Trump is up to. 232,000 people dead, and he's out there saying, it's gone away. You got his son going on TV saying, it's nearly nothing. This is very dangerous stuff. You see? So you go from real serious news to reality TV, the Lost World or whatever, the Real World on MTV, and then it became something a lot more, a lot less serious, and then it was all this garbage, and then you get to this stuff in government. Then you got Donald Trump in there. Trying to be an entertainer, but killing you at the same time. I'd die to be entertained. Would you? Would you die to be entertained? Would you? Because you've got people at rallies with Donald Trump, at rallies with the man. I put that last word in quotes. Since he can't stick around for an interview on 60 Minutes, he walks out of press conferences and he doesn't know how to answer a question when a woman asks it of him. He walks away. He doesn't participate in a debate. He chickens out of it. He chickened out of one last time he ran. I think this guy is incredibly superstitious. He's doing exactly the same blooming things he did in 2016 as he was running. He quit on a debate. He bailed on it. You don't remember that, do you? When he raised money for Vietnam vets or vets, and it was all fake. All that money went to him and his businesses and his, come on. And now he quit. People have forgotten. Do you remember he did quit a debate with Biden? I'm not doing that remote debate. Guy has COVID-19. I'm not doing that debate, but I am going to come on here with my COVID self and get into a shouting match with Savannah Guthrie, because that works for TV. Come on. You don't think NBC is complicit in this? Yeah, that sexual predator, Matt Lauer, giving Hillary Clinton a hard time 4 years ago, and then lobbing softballs. Lobbing the wet cloth at Donald Trump. And they have a lot in common, those two, when it comes to women and how they treat women. NBC News, give me a break. NBC, while there's some good people on there like Kristen Welker, Lester Holt, and some others. Not Chuck Todd, he ain't one of them. It's not their faults. It's the bosses, the people behind the news who make the decisions at the news desk. The profit motive, if there is any model of that, because news isn't really profitable. They're trying to make some money off of it. But this is what's happened. NBC is as complicit as anybody in all of this. This isn't about Obama. Obama's the reason why we have Donald Trump. If it wasn't for Obama, Donald Trump wouldn't be here. Bull crap. Bull crap. That is not true. You are ignoring 50 years precedent to this. And you are just really not being honest with yourself. If anyone else had served those 8 years and that person was a Democrat, whether their race was black, white, or anything else, you would have had most likely what happened now, because the 50-year march to it comes. People got jaded. They were fed up of the Clintons. I don't want the Clintons anymore. I want change. What change? You just want change. And that's what happens when people who are not informed in some cases, and some cases they are very informed. I don't want to say that people just don't have any information. But when you don't have the information that can really help you make a decision, sometimes people get exasperated. Oh, I want change. I don't care what. And there are people like that. I don't care what change it is. I just don't want this anymore. And then they go vote for Donald Trump, knowing what they know about him. I like his brand, one of these voters said the other day. I like his brand. That's why I voted for him. What? But people vote for all kinds of reasons. Do you like his brand right now? The one that says genocidal psychopathic killer on it? Genocidal maniac on it? Do you like that brand? I know there's going to be people that are going to vote Jim Jones. But for the rest of us, we still have 3 voting days. If we haven't voted yet, if you haven't voted yet, make sure you vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and all the Democrats. I could go on for another hour about how defunct we have been here over these last 50 years. How this march, it's not all of us, but it's not all of our faults. We have to just raise our voices more often and organize for change. And we have to be strategic. And instead of sitting on sidelines, we have to get up and do things constructively, not violently. You know, you want to talk, someone is getting up and doing something, right? These white racist terrorist men, right? They're doing something. It's the wrong thing. It's violent, and they should be all locked the hell up. This is what happens, right? Plots to kill governors, plots to kidnap. Come on, this is the country you're living in. Good God, man, for heaven's sakes. I mean, we have to start waking up here. The apathy situation, apathy is dead now. We have got to wake the hell up. Donald Trump did not just fall out of the sky, as Michael Moore once said. You know? And I'm not a fan of everything Michael Moore says or does either. Why should you be a fan of everything that someone does? The only people who are the cult supporters and, you know, people like Senator Kenny, I almost said Kennedy. Kenny. Senator Kelly Loeffler of Georgia, who is soon going to be out of the Senate. Oh yeah, I support everything he does. Come on. That's that Hitlerian lockstep, that fascist authoritarian lockstep. Everything this guy does, you support it. I don't care if he gets rid of my whole family. I'm gonna, that kind of thing. There's a woman on Sky News who's, lost her dad or lost her husband or something to COVID. I think it's her dad. And she goes, well, I'm going to keep attending your rallies. If I could attend them, if they were nearer me, I would go. Jesus Christ. So again. But this is the noise and the garbage, right? And this is 50 years of now you got no news. It is all trial of the century stuff in the 90s. Monica Lewinsky, we spent all this time on the fact that Bill Clinton sexually harassed Monica Lewinsky. And I don't care that consent was there. It's a power dynamic that's going on. It's what harassment is. It's about power. It's about power. This is the issue, folks. You know, the media spent so much time on blue dresses and stains and all this garbage, and Linda Tripp, who passed away, I think, this year or last year. You know, this turncoat who taped her and taped Lewinsky and this and the other and that. It's garbage. Now, it had a lot of effect on Monica Lewinsky's life, of course. And, you know, Lewinsky is a real leader now. Is doing really good things and raising awareness. And she's on Twitter and, you know, finding her voice and amplifying her feelings and voice and all these, taking important stands and being a leader. Great. That's really good. But there's a lot of people who don't come out clean on the other side. And she's had her ups and downs. She's talked about it. But there are a lot of other people who, you know, they're not given that platform. And they are so alone and isolated, or they're not being heard, they're not being listened to. And, you know, in many ways, social media has given voice to that too. We all make videos, myself included, right? We post them. What are we really saying? How are we really feeling? What are we really thinking? It's this whole environment that has brought us to this place. And so when I started out by saying, don't take this country for granted, you have to fight for it. That remains the way I'm going to feel about this and how I'm going to close out this episode, because you have to fight for the country to continue to exist. It doesn't have to be 1861 anymore or 1862 or, you know, that part of the Civil War. It doesn't have to be cannons and guns. It's about ideas and about us voting and about organizing and having a game plan. What is our agenda plan? Are you strategizing? Or are you just on the sideline talking and tweeting? Or are you putting together plans so that if it should be that Joe Biden gets in, or even if he doesn't, but if it should be that he gets in, what are you lobbying him with? We have to be strategic, right? You can vote for him whether you like everything about him or not. This isn't a popularity contest. This is about values and about ideas. And it's about records too, but who cares about records when you've got a fascist dictator destroying the country? Sadly, many of us, we don't care about the record. We do care about records, but not when you've got a fascist dictator over here setting fire to your blooming house, to your blooming country. You don't have time to go list, let me go look at every single thing this guy did before I decide. While this guy is deporting, while this guy is taking kids from their families, while he's getting rid of all this education about enslavement and about the 1600s and about 1619. And you're over here sticking your finger to your tongue and putting it up to the air, holding it to the wind. Oh, well, let me see. Do what you wish. But there are people out here who care. Millions of people who care about the direction this country's going in. And what we have to do is continue to push. If Joe Biden gets in, and I believe he will, we have to continue to push. And it can't only be young people doing it. It's got to be all of us. Young people have already started movements, the Sunrise Movement, climate movements, right? We've seen that all over the world. Vanessa Nakate, Greta Thunberg, the folks at March for Our Lives, Emma Gonzalez. These are all young people. All of them are under the age of 30. All of them. Most of them are under the age of 25. I mean, come on, folks. We've got to grab the reins again. And we've got to vote. If you haven't, please do. If you've got a ballot with you, make sure you drop it off at a Dropbox location that's official. Make sure that if you don't want to do that, hand deliver it in. Drive to your local county board of elections or your municipal town clerk and drive to that location and drop it off by hand. Or vote in person. Whether you do that over this weekend or you do it on Tuesday. And make sure you get your friends to vote too. Check in on them. Ask them, have they voted? Offer to drive them to the polls with you or whatever you can do. I know we've got a pandemic going on. You got to vote. This is how we start to arrest this madness. You're stressed. You're traumatized. Come on, there's a better way than this. There's a better way than what we've been going through for the last 4 years. Quite frankly, for the last 50. Quite frankly, for the last 401. Let's cultivate something different. Let's cultivate something empowering, uplifting. Let's keep pushing for change and the end of this murder of black people by the state. We've had enough of it. We've had enough of all of this stuff. We need to push for voting rights again. We need to keep doing that. We need to get a Democratic Senate going. We've got to get a Democratic Senate so that all these bills that the House Democrats passed over these last nearly 2 full years now can get put into law. Can pass in the Senate, and then a Democratic president, Joe Biden, can sign them. And you will start to see things change. But we have to continue to have agendas to push change. You cannot just sit back. Because then you get what you got 4 years ago. You get Hillary Clinton. And you get a failed campaign because her strategist didn't care enough, and perhaps she didn't. And then you get all the other crap that goes with that. And you get Donald Trump. And you get media who kiss his backside as they have for the last 45 years. This is never about Obama. Oh, Obama's the one. No. This has been about corporate influence and dark money. Go and read Jane Mayer's book. Mayer. Jane Mayer. First name Jane, the 4-letter word Jane, not the Jane with a Y in it. It's Jane, the common spelling of her name. 4 letters. Jane. Mayer. Mayer. I don't know if she's related to John, but all I know is that they share the same last name, spelt the same way. And she wrote Dark Money. You got to read that book. That's what this stuff is about. How do you think Amy Coney Barrett got on the Supreme Court? The Federalists. And where did they get funded? Who funded them? Go and read Dark Money. Because that's what funded them. That is what's going on in this country. It's the hidden hand that's all too exposed. It isn't about Obama's the one. Give me a break. Oh, I stood up to this. This is Donald Trump. I've stood up to the special interests and the banks. And I've stood up to the corporations. Bullcrap. You've not stood up. You've absolutely kissed their backsides with tax cuts. That's what you've done. And you've done it for the top 5% of the country. You haven't cut the taxes of the middle class. Your economic record is crap. Even before this pandemic, your economy was failing. It was failing under your watch. Come on. It failed. It failed. Manufacturing jobs continued to leave this country. You screwed over the American farmer. And now you're trying to make up for it. Go and read the column, and I've kept it in the liner notes for many a week, many a month now. The article by Jennifer Rubin in the Washington Post from August of 2019. Trump's record on the economy is one big con. That's basically the headline. But I have a link to that. It's a con. And all this garbage, the economy. His strong point is the economy, the media says. But do they ever examine what he's done? No. It's garbage. And yet people believe he's strong point. And you got these polls. And, people believe, and forget the polls, but people believe that this guy's done some great stuff for the economy. I mean, are they all billionaires who answered that poll because he's done wonders for them? He's continued that. Billionaires have never suffered under this administration. And Obama, they prospered very well too, thank you very much. And under W, and under, all these administrations. But Donald Trump has given tax breaks to them. Obama did not. Tax breaks continuously at the detriment of you, the average person. He wants to take away your health care, wants to take away Obamacare, wants to take care of pre-existing condition protections, wants to get rid of your Social Security, your Medicare, Medicaid. Come on, folks. There should not be a question about who you're going to vote for. And is there really an undecided voter still? Does that even exist? What is that thing called an undecided voter? With everything you've seen these last 4 years. You've had Access Hollywood tapes come out. You've had all the stuff, That's just the tip of the iceberg. All the stuff he's done to damage this country, to kill it. The country is crumbling. It's up to us. It's up to us to stop the bleeding, to staunch the flow, and let's get back on solid ground. We really do have a lot of work to do these next 3 days, so please Phonebank. And if you haven't voted, make sure you do. Thank you very much for listening to this edition of The Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore.
This year's election is going to be a little different.
Instead of one election day, we now have a voting season.
That special time of year when polls can open weeks before election day.
When your mailbox can become a voting booth.
When how you vote is just as important as who you vote for.
How, when, and where to cast your ballot depends on your state.
'Tis the season to be prepared.
This year, plan your vote.